A senior federal auditor hid his $4 million fortune for 20 years to test his son's character, only to watch him accept $160,000 from his in-laws while sitting silently through his father's public humiliation. That night, the game ended, and the father, armed with financial precision, began the methodical process of disinheriting his entitled son from everything. Before continuing, write where you are from or what time it is. I had just decided I wouldn't be late. The tea kettle whistled as my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I was running my own numbers, not the audit report spread out on the desk, when the call came. "Dad!" Seth's voice was mid-complaint, like I was already interrupting his day. "Lana's parents want you for Thanksgiving dinner at their place Thursday at 6. I wrapped my fingers around the warm ceramic mug. First test, I thought. That's kind of them. I'd be happy to come. A pause. Seth always expected friction, not easy agreement. "Right, well good." Through the phone, I could hear the television murmuring in the background of my house, the house Seth and Lana had occupied rent-free for 8 years. "So we found this place in Riverton," he continued, his tone shifting to the practiced stress I recognized. "Perfect size, good neighborhood, $800,000. Problem is the down payment. We're short about $160,000. I glanced around my modest one-bedroom apartment downtown. It was clean, sparse, furnished with items I'd deliberately chosen from secondhand stores. "That's a significant amount." "Well," Seth's voice carried a shrug of dismissal. "Not like you'd have that kind of cash lying around anyway." My jaw locked. I said nothing. Then Lana's voice, sharp and too loud, cut through the silence. "Just tell the old man we need money. Wait, never mind. He's probably living on Social Security or something." Seth didn't pause, didn't defend me. "So anyway, Dad, you'll come Thursday, 6 sharp. I closed my eyes briefly. Senior auditor, $50,000 monthly salary, portfolio worth $2.3 million. The numbers ran through my mind, a mental ledger against the insult. 20 years ago, I'd made a choice. Raise Seth without the cushion of obvious wealth to force independence. Now the irony burned. "I'll be there, Seth. Should I bring anything?" "Just yourself, don't worry about it." A beat. Then the real request. "Actually, maybe don't park on the street. Gordon and Martha have a nice neighborhood. Park around the corner or something." I opened my eyes and stared at my reflection in the window. The man looking back was methodical. 64, trained for decades in finding financial patterns others missed. "I won't be late," I said, my voice steady, deliberately even. "Thank you for inviting me." "Yeah, bye." He hung up. I set the phone down. The hum of the refrigerator settled around me, a sound of strategic poverty. This place cost $900 a month when I could afford 10 times that. The used Camry, the drugstore glasses, all a controlled experiment. I walked to the bookshelf and picked up a framed photo. Seth at 7, gap-toothed, holding up a spelling bee certificate. Best dad he'd written on the back. I remembered his pride. When had that boy become the man who told me to park around the corner? I moved to my laptop and created a file. Thanksgiving 2021. November 18th. Call from Seth. Content. Invitation. Request for $160K indirect. Dismissive comments overheard. An audit always starts with the first anomaly. I walked to the closet. The tailored suits for the Federal Accountability Office hung on the left. On the right, pushed to the back, was the threadbare jacket I'd bought 15 years ago, a stain on the lapel I'd never quite gotten out. I needed to see the truth before deciding anything, needed to know who my son had become when he thought his father had nothing to offer. My hand bypassed the good suits and reached for the worn fabric. I'd play the role they assigned me, the poor, embarrassing father. I would watch, listen, and document. Then I would decide whether the man who told me to park in the dark was worth saving. I laid the old jacket on the chair. The apartment was quiet. I wondered when Seth had stopped seeing me and started seeing only what I appeared to lack. Thursday was 3 days away. I spent Monday morning driving past my real house. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Current value pushed $650,000. Seth's Honda sat in the driveway next to Lana's Lexus. My house, their home. 8 years of rent-free living in a property worth over $500,000. Seth's $70,000 salary, Lana's estimated $50,000 income, 0 rent, 0 mortgage. $960,000 had flowed through their accounts. Where had it gone? The Lexus in my driveway was the ghost of an answer. Wednesday evening, Seth called again, his voice uneasy. "Dad, just confirming you're still coming tomorrow, 6 o'clock, the Baker place in Highlands. I have the address. I'll be there." "And Dad," his voice shifted, a subtle, desperate plea. "Maybe dress nicely. I mean, as nice as you can." I looked at the old suit laid across my chair, faint with mothballs. I knew the subtext. "I'll wear my best suit, Seth." The relief in his voice was clear, cutting deeper than Lana's insult. I went to my car. It was a 15-year-old Camry, meticulously maintained, worth maybe $3,000. Not too shabby to be insulting, but clearly the vehicle of a man without resources. I cleaned the interior, a routine before the final test. The man who'd spent his career following hidden money was now preparing to follow his own son's character. I backed the Camry out. Tomorrow, I would drive to a mansion, park around the corner as instructed, and walk into the final audit. I will find the answer to who you are. The neighborhoods transformed as I drove west. Highlands announced its wealth from every corner. Manicured lawns, luxury vehicles, streets named after trees. The Baker estate sat on a corner lot, a monument to commercial real estate. I estimated its value at $2.5 million. I parked my Camry on the street 2 houses down, as commanded. I straightened my worn tie in the rearview mirror. The store-bought $7 pumpkin pie sat on the passenger seat, a cheap prop. I picked it up and walked toward the house. A curtain moved in the front window. Someone is watching. Seth opened the door before I reached the porch, his expression tight. "Dad, you made it." I held up the pie. "I brought dessert." He glanced at the plastic container, then away. "That's, thoughtful. Come in." Gordon Baker filled the doorway behind him, silver hair, an expensive casual shirt that cost more than my entire outfit. His smile was practiced, professional. "Roland, come in, come in." His handshake was firm, territorial. "Still driving that old Toyota? They really do last forever, don't they?" "It serves its purpose." Martha, blonde and polished, appeared beside her husband, her jewelry catching the light. "How practical," Seth says. "You've always been about practicality." Lana stood behind them, her face rigid with contempt. "More like necessity, Mom." They ushered me into a living room that looked like a magazine spread, vaulted ceilings, original artwork. Gordon gestured to a leather chair in the corner, away from the main seating area. "Drink? I've got excellent scotch, or maybe something simpler." "Water is fine." He poured himself 3 fingers of amber liquid. "So Roland, government work. You're at some agency downtown." "The Federal Accountability Office. I audit federal spending." Gordon laughed, a booming sound that demanded attention. "Ah, a bureaucrat. Well, someone has to do it, I suppose." "The pay must be adequate." "It meets my needs." Martha settled onto the sofa, crossing her legs. "Such important work. I'm sure public service is so admirable when people don't have other options." I sipped my water, said nothing. Seth sat beside Lana, rigid, avoiding my gaze. "Tell me," Gordon continued, swirling his scotch. "What happened? You must have had ambitions when you were younger, plans for something more." "I chose my path deliberately." Dinner was served in a dining room with a table that could seat 12. They had placed me at the far end, in a cheap folding chair brought in to accommodate the extra guest. My store-bought pie sat on the sideboard, ignored next to elaborate pastries. Gordon dominated the conversation. "Just closed the deal on my 3rd dealership last month, Seth. You really should come work for me. Real money in automotive sales." Martha dabbed her lips with a linen napkin. "Better than some family examples, certainly." She glanced at me, the meaning clear. "Seth has always been capable," I said quietly, offering a small defense. Lana's fork clinked against her plate. Capable, but held back. Some people inherit advantages. Seth had to build everything himself. The irony was a knife twist. Seth had inherited the house, 8 years rent-free, every advantage I could provide without revealing the $4 million. Must be difficult, Martha continued, her tone dripping with practiced sympathy. Making ends meet on a government salary. Do you have savings? Retirement accounts? I'm adequately prepared. Gordon leaned forward. But not enough to help with major expenses, I'd imagine. Seth mentioned you two found a house. 800,000. You need what? 160 for the down payment. Seth nodded. Yes, sir, we're working on it. What about family help? Gordon turned to me. Roland, can you contribute? The air thinned. Seth's eyes were on me, waiting for the confirmation he'd already given them, that I was worthless. That's a significant sum, I said. That's what I thought. Gordon's smile was triumphant. No offense, but government work doesn't exactly build wealth, does it? Can't squeeze blood from a stone. Seth sat silent, not one word of protest. Well then, Gordon stood, placed a hand on Seth's shoulder, a territorial claim. Tell you what, Martha and I will provide the $160,000 down payment. Gift from us. Can't have our daughter wait forever for help that clearly isn't coming from elsewhere. Seth's face transformed. Gordon, that's incredibly generous. Thank you. I watched my son accept another man as his benefactor, showing more gratitude in 30 seconds than he'd shown me in 8 years. The cheap chair, the parking insult. I could have forgiven all that. But not this silence, not the acceptance of my humiliation without a single word of defense. That's very generous of you both, I said, my tone a flat line of neutrality. At 9, I stood. Thank you for the meal, I should be going. Gordon barely looked up. Early night, long drive back to… Where are you living these days, downtown? Cozy, I'm sure. Seth rose halfway, then settled back. Bye, Dad. No offer to walk me out. No drive safely. Goodbye, Seth. I paused at the doorway. Enjoy your new house. I walked to my Camry alone. I sat in the driver's seat. My hands were steady, my breathing even. The auditor in me had everything. 8 years rent-free, tonight's complete betrayal. Gordon's hand on Seth's shoulder, claiming him. I started the engine and pulled away from the curb. The Baker mansion blazed with light and laughter. I had seen enough. I reached my downtown apartment at 10:47 p.m. I moved directly to my desk. Documentation first, always. I pulled up the file I'd started Monday, Thanksgiving, 2021. November 25th, Thursday, 6 p.m. 9 p.m. Location. Gordon Dacha Martha Residence, Highlands. I typed everything. Gordon's comments about the car. Martha's questions about my finances. Lana's contempt. Seth's silence. The $160,000 offer. Seth's gratitude. Not to me, but to the man who diminished me. The words filled 3 pages, clinical, precise, an audit report on financial malfeasance. I saved and backed up the document. 20 years of strategic poverty, 8 years of free housing while Seth saved nothing. Tonight's complete betrayal. I pulled up my financial management software, my salary, my investments, the total liquid assets, $1.2 million. The house where Seth lived rent-free, $650,000. The grand total, $4 million. The wealth my son thought didn't exist. Friday morning arrived with gray rain. Coffee in hand, I opened my laptop again. First search, West Coast City Inheritance Law, disinheritance adult children. The results were clear. Complete disinheritance was allowed. Second search, West Coast City Eviction Law. Family members, complex, might require an attorney. 30 days notice minimum. Third search, transfer on death deed TOD. Perfect. Property transfers automatically upon death, bypassing probate. Seth wouldn't inherit the house automatically. I spent the afternoon organizing documents, property deed, tax records, 8 years of utility bills showing sole ownership, Seth's old tax returns showing his substantial earnings. By evening, the framework was set, legally sound. 1. A new will explicitly disinheriting Seth, everything to charity, the City Scholarship Fund. 2. A Todd deed for the house, also to the charity. Seth would need to vacate within 30 days of my death, but first, I needed him out while I was still alive. Saturday morning, I drove past my house. Seth's Honda, Lana's Lexus, my house, my gift, now the weapon against me. I drove back to my apartment and called a colleague. Marcus, it's Roland. I need an attorney recommendation. Real estate and inheritance law. Someone thorough. He gave me the name. Vernon King. I drafted an email immediately. Subject: consultation request. Estate planning and property matter. Mr. King, I need to execute a comprehensive will, establish a transfer on death deed, and address the current occupation of my primary residence by family members. I hit send. The quiet sound of the email departing was the starting gun. I had spent 20 years hiding wealth to teach independence, 8 years providing free housing. Last night, Seth accepted another man's money. This morning, I had started the process of removing every advantage. Monday afternoon, Vernon King's assistant called with an appointment for Wednesday morning. I had already printed 3 copies of my documentation, chronological, detailed, damning. The plan was simple, airtight, morally justified. Seth had made his choice. Now, I would make mine. Wednesday arrived cold and clear. Vernon King's office was professional, focused on substance over appearance. I set my leather portfolio on the conference table. Mr. Stewart, thank you for coming in. I understand that you need estate planning assistance. I need to disinherit my son completely and permanently. Can West Coast City law accomplish this? Yes, it can. Tell me the situation. I removed my documentation. The handwritten notes from Thanksgiving, bank statements, the property deed. I arranged the stacks methodically. My son showed me who he is when he thought I had nothing. Now that I'm certain of his character, he'll receive nothing. Vernon read through the papers. His eyebrows lifted slightly at my financials. You have substantial assets. The house alone is worth $650,000. And your liquid assets. $1.2 million in savings and investments, $800,000 in retirement accounts. I slid another document across. Seth's income tax returns. This shows his income over those 8 years. They should have saved over $1 million. They have nothing. You want this airtight? Vernon asked, pulling out a legal pad. We settled on the TOD deed. Cleaner, faster, harder to challenge. For my liquid assets, the new will would name the City Scholarship Fund. Children who have nothing will benefit from what my son took for granted, I said. Justice to it. Vernon outlined the timeline. 2 weeks to draft, notarize, and record all documents. I requested a house appraisal to solidify the asset value. I called Seth on a Tuesday evening. Seth, I'm having the house appraised next Tuesday. The appraiser will need access. Appraised? Why? Insurance purposes. Routine property valuation. Will you be home? No, I'll be at work. Bula might be here. This seems sudden. It's overdue. I'll coordinate. I accompanied the appraiser, Kevin Murphy, the following week. Seth wasn't home. Walking through the house felt strange. Their lives built in my space without payment or appreciation. The appraisal came back at $650,000. By mid-December, all documents were ready. The signing was scheduled for Wednesday afternoon in the notary's office. Joyce Hartman, the notary, reviewed my federal ID badge. Mr. Stewart, I need to verify you understand these documents. This will revoke all prior wills and directs your entire estate to the City Scholarship Fund. Do you understand? Completely. And this deed transfers your property to the same foundation upon your death. Your son is not a beneficiary. You understand this? I do. That's my intention. I signed with deliberate strokes. The notary supplied her seal. The stamp made a definitive sound that echoed in the quiet room. Final. Irreversible. The next morning, I personally walked the recorded TOD deed to the River County Recording Office. I wanted to see it entered into public record myself. I held the stamped copy with the official recording number. The house would never be Seth's. Vernon confirmed everything was executed and recorded. When do you plan to inform your son? Soon, after the holidays. I want him to enjoy one more Christmas, believing he's getting millions. Vernon nodded. That's actually remarkably restrained. You've done this correctly. I left his office carrying the copies. Christmas came and went. Seth sent a brief generic text, no acknowledgement of the Thanksgiving that had changed everything. By early January, I was ready. I texted Seth, need to speak with you. Coffee Wednesday afternoon, downtown café. His response came hours later. Sure. What's this about? Better in person. Wednesday was gray, rain streaking the windows of the downtown cafe. I chose a corner table, a calculated stage. Seth walked in, shoulders hunched against the weather, confusion tightening his face. What's going on? You sounded serious. I sipped my black coffee, letting the silence stretch. I want to tell you about something I did 20 years ago, a decision about how to raise you. He frowned. Okay. When you were 15, I made approximately $200,000 annually as a senior federal auditor. I had a substantial investment portfolio, real assets. I could have given you anything. His expression shifted, uncertain now. Instead, I chose to live modestly. Let you believe we had limited resources. I wanted you to learn independence, self-reliance, the value of work. I set down my cup. I wanted to see who you'd become without the cushion of obvious wealth. Seth's face paled. What are you saying? I'm saying I currently have $1.2 million in savings and investments, $800,000 in retirement accounts. I own the house where you live, $650,000 paid off. Total assets approximately $4 million. The color drained completely from his face. You're joking. I'm telling you the truth I've hidden for 2 decades, the poverty you've been embarrassed by, strategic, choices, not necessities. His hands gripped the table edge. Why would you? To see who you'd become, to understand your character when you thought I had nothing. I kept my voice level. Thanksgiving showed me everything I needed to know. He stared, trying to rally. Thanksgiving, that was you accepting another man's money without defending your father. That was you sitting silent while Gordon and Martha systematically humiliated me. That was you telling me to park around the corner because my car was embarrassing. I didn't, you did, and I documented it. Every word, every silence, every moment of betrayal. I removed a thick sealed envelope from my jacket. 2 weeks ago, I completed new estate documents, a will disinheriting you completely, a transfer on death deed removing you as beneficiary of the house. Everything goes to the city scholarship fund. I slid the envelope across the table. These are copies. The originals are executed, notarized, and recorded with River County. Legally binding. Seth stared at the envelope. You can't. I can. Oregon law allows complete disinheritance of adult children. Vernon King, my attorney, ensured everything is legally airtight. You showed me who you are, Seth. Now you'll receive the inheritance you've earned. Nothing. His hands shook as he tore open the paper. His face transformed. Shock, then a dawning horror. This is because of Thanksgiving. That's insane. It's because of 8 years rent-free in my house, because of every dismissive comment, every embarrassed glance. Thanksgiving wasn't the cause. It was the confirmation. I've lived in a $900 apartment while you enjoyed $650,000 of my equity. You had every advantage and learned only contempt. I didn't know. How could I know if you never told me? Your ignorance of my resources doesn't excuse your treatment of who you thought I was. You accepted Gordon's money over having any relationship with a father you believed was poor. That tells me everything about your values. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. He snatched it up. Not now, Lana. Her voice, shrill and demanding, carried across the table. Seth's expression crumbled. He just told me he's got $4 million. No, I didn't know. Of course I didn't. He already did it. Legal documents recorded everything. Lana was screaming now. Seth pulled the phone from his ear. I need to go home. We need to talk about this. There's nothing to discuss. The documents are filed. My decision is final. Gordon knows lawyers. Let him hire them. Vernon King ensured every document was prepared to withstand challenge. You'll lose. Seth stood, swaying. How can you do this? I'm your son, and you showed me exactly what that means to you. I stood as well, my posture rigid. The house is mine. The money is mine. None of it was ever yours. You made your choices. Now live with them. I left the cafe, the documents scattered on the table. Lana's voice a desperate wail through the phone. In my car, I sat for a moment. Across the street, through the window, I could see Seth collapsed back into his chair, head in his hands. I started the engine and pulled into traffic. The first blow had landed. 10 days passed after the cafe meeting, days of quiet, methodical routine. Seth called twice. I let the calls go unanswered. Then, the certified letter arrived, requiring my signature. I knew what it was before I opened the thick, formal envelope bearing the letterhead of Harrison & Cole, a prominent, aggressive law firm. The postal worker waited while I signed the electronic pad. Inside were 12 pages of legal filing, Seth Stewart, plaintiff, versus Roland Stewart, defendant. The filing claimed diminished capacity, undue influence, and emotional instability, evidenced by the sudden disinheritance of my only child. I photographed each page with my phone, the tiny click of the camera a sharp, decisive action. They filed, I told Vernon King when he answered my call. Expected. The next day, Vernon spread the document across his conference table. He read it, his expression completely unimpressed. "This is a Hail Mary pass," he said finally. "They're hoping to intimidate you into settlement. West Coast city law is clear. Competent adults can disinherit anyone for any reason. This won't succeed. Fight it completely," I commanded. "Let's bury them in documentation." Over the next week, I provided everything Vernon requested: my security clearance renewal from 6 months ago, government background checks, annual physical exam results, and performance reviews. He compiled it into a fortress of evidence. "Harrison & Cole is expensive," Vernon noted, tapping a pen on the filing. "Someone with resources is funding this. Gordon Baker, Seth's father-in-law. That explains the aggressive approach. They're used to buying outcomes." The handwritten letters from Seth started arriving a few days later. Rambling apologies, excuses of youthful foolishness, promises to be better. The second letter referenced specific shared memories, teaching him to ride a bike at 7. I read each one, filed them in a folder, and didn't respond. I recognized manipulation when I saw it. Mid-February, an unknown number rang. I switched the phone to speaker and started recording. Roland Stewart. Roland Gordon Baker. "Let's talk man to man, businessman to businessman. Everyone has a price. Name the amount you want for yourself and we'll settle this. This isn't about money, Mr. Baker. It's about character. Seth failed a test he didn't know he was taking." Gordon's voice hardened. "Don't be naive. Everything's about money. 200,000, 3. You can't buy your way out of this." I hung up, saved the recording, and emailed it to Vernon. The third call came from Lana directly. "Roland, it's Lana. I think we all need to take a step back. We're family." "We became strangers at Thanksgiving. This call doesn't change that." "I'm trying to apologize. Can we have dinner?" Her voice shifted, sweeter now, almost pleading. "Your apology is motivated by money, not remorse." The answer is no. "You're being unreasonable. Seth is your only child," she snapped, and he showed me exactly what that means to him. Goodbye, Lana. I hung up and blocked her number when she called back immediately. The hearing was scheduled for late February. I dressed in my work suit, appropriate for a senior federal auditor. Vernon met me outside the courtroom. "Stay calm, answer questions directly, show them exactly who you are," he advised. Seth sat at the plaintiff's table with his attorney. Lana sat behind him. Seth's attorney claimed emotional disturbance, arguing no rational parent cuts off their only child without cause. Vernon countered with the documentation, passing my employment records to the judge. "Mr. Stewart is a senior federal auditor," Vernon stated. "He planned this estate change methodically over months, consulting professionals, making informed decisions. This is textbook competence." The judge looked at me directly. "Mr. Stewart, you changed your will after 40 years. Can you explain this decision?" "Yes, Your Honor. I kept my financial status private to teach my son independence. At Thanksgiving, I learned how he treats people he believes have nothing. His character, when tested, was found wanting. This seems like a harsh response to a single dinner." "It wasn't a single dinner, Your Honor. It was 8 years of taking without gratitude, culminating in one evening where he showed his true values. I documented everything." She studied me. Then the documentation. "I've reviewed the evidence. Mr. Stewart is clearly competent. He has documented his reasoning. West Coast city law permits disinheritance. Challenge dismissed." Seth's face crumbled. Outside the courthouse, he called across the lobby. "Dad, please just talk to me, 5 minutes." I paused, let him see me, and continued walking. Gordon's money had bought them nothing but expensive legal fees and public documentation of Seth's failure. The will was secure. That left one remaining asset. 3 weeks passed after the court victory. I returned to my quarterly audit reports, maintaining the quiet rhythm. Then, on a Tuesday evening in late March, I called Vernon King. I want to reclaim my house. The property where Seth lives, Vernon confirmed. The property I own, where Seth has lived without lease or payment for 8 years. Draft the notice. Vernon prepared the document that week. Notice to terminate tenancy. Effective April 1st. Seth had 60 days to vacate the premises. Property owner exercising rights. On April 1st, I drove to my house at 10 a.m. Seth's Honda was gone. He would be at work. Lana's Lexus sat in the driveway. I knocked on my own front door. Lana answered, confusion quickly turning to shock. Roland, what are you? I'm delivering legal notice. I handed her the envelope. 60 days to vacate. You and Seth need to be out by June 1st. She stared at the paper. Vacate? This is Seth's house. This is my house. I bought it 23 years ago, paid it off 12 years ago. Seth has lived here rent-free by my permission, which I'm now withdrawing. Her face went white. You can't just kick us out. We have rights. You have 60 days. Read the notice. I turned to leave. You're making a mistake. Gordon will fight this. Her voice rose, shrill with desperation. I looked back. Gordon's money couldn't overturn the will. It won't stop a property owner from reclaiming his own house. June 1st. Be out. I walked to my Camry, photographed the house, and drove away. Documentation. Vernon filed the forcible entry and detainer action in mid-April when Seth and Lana didn't respond to the notice. The court scheduled a hearing for mid-May. The hearing was procedural, quick. I presented the property deed showing sole ownership, documentation that Seth had never paid rent, and the 60-day notice. Seth's new attorney, less expensive than Harrison and Cole, argued 8 years of occupancy created a tenancy right. Judge Reynolds rejected it immediately. No lease, no rent, no documentation of any rental agreement. This is permissive occupancy which the owner can terminate. I'm ordering the tenants to vacate by June 1st or face forcible removal. Seth sat rigid in his seat. Lana wasn't present this time. Outside, Seth approached me in the parking lot. Where are we supposed to go? I unlocked my car door. That's not my concern. We can't afford first and last month's rent on a decent place, not with the down payment gone to Gordon's lawyers. You had 8 years of free housing to save money. You saved nothing. Those are your choices, Seth. Live with them. You're enjoying this, watching us suffer. I met his eyes. I'm not enjoying it. I'm implementing it. There's a difference. I drove away. In my rearview mirror, Seth stood alone in the parking lot, defeated. I heard through indirect channels, colleague gossip, that they had found a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in a less desirable neighborhood, rent $2,200 monthly. Gordon's money had dried up. He was tired of funding their losses. The clock was ticking down to June 1st. The June 1st deadline approached. On a Tuesday evening in late May, my apartment buzzer rang. Dad, it's me. Seth's voice was subdued. Can I come up, please? Just 10 minutes. I considered refusing, but pressed the button instead. Why? Because I need to talk to you face to face, not through lawyers, just us. Seth appeared at my door looking diminished, worn clothing, tired eyes, his shoulders curved inward. He didn't presume entry. You have 10 minutes. I stepped aside. We found an apartment, he began, remaining near the entrance. It's small, but it's what we can afford now. Problem is, it's not ready until mid-June. We need 2 more weeks. You had 60 days. You chose to wait until the deadline approached. We were trying to find something better. The legal fees from fighting you wiped out our savings. Those were your choices. Poor financial planning doesn't obligate me to extend deadlines. Seth nodded slowly. Gordon gave us $50,000, but he won't give more. He's furious about the court losses. He said, "You're too stubborn, and we're on our own now." He tried to buy a solution. When that failed, he withdrew support. Conditional assistance based on success. How does it feel being on the receiving end? Point taken. Seth's voice was quiet. What about Lana? How's she handling this? His expression darkened. She blames me for everything. She says I should have known you had money, that I should have fixed this. She calls me a failure daily. Those are the same words she used about me at Thanksgiving. You said nothing then. Now you understand what silence costs. I do. Too late, but I do. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said finally. I'm not asking you to change the will. I'm asking for 2 weeks. That's all. Just 14 more days. I gave you 8 years. That's 4,176 days of free housing. You're asking for 14 more. The answer is no. The court order says June 1st. That deadline stands. Be out by then, or the sheriff enforces it. Seth looked at me directly. I came here knowing you'd probably say no. I came anyway because I had to try, not for the house or the money. I understand those are gone, just to see if there's anything left between us worth saving. Thanksgiving answered that question. He nodded, his hand on the doorknob. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not about losing the money. About disappointing you. If you'd shown this awareness at Thanksgiving, none of this would have happened. I know, but I didn't. And now I'm living with it. Yes, you are. Goodbye, Seth. He left without another word. I watched him emerge onto the street below and get into his Honda. He sat there for a long moment before starting the engine. Over the next few days, I drove past the house, verifying progress. Rental truck on Wednesday, boxes loaded Thursday, furniture carried out Friday. On May 30th, I watched from my car as Seth and Lana made their final trips. Lana slammed the trunk repeatedly, her movements sharp with anger. Seth moved mechanically, without expression. By evening, the truck was gone. My phone buzzed. Text from Seth. We're out. House is empty. Keys are on kitchen counter. I typed a single word. Acknowledged. June 1st arrived on a Sunday. I drove to the house at noon. I let myself in with my original key. The keys Seth mentioned lay on the kitchen counter. I walked through empty rooms, scuff marks, nail holes, the ghost architecture of their life in my space. In the master bedroom, I found a small framed photo they'd missed, fallen behind the dresser. Seth and Lana on their wedding day 7 years ago, young, hopeful. I picked it up, studied it for a moment, then set it on the windowsill. Near the door, on the floor, was a note in Seth's handwriting. I picked it up. You won. Are you happy now, Seth? I wasn't happy. Happiness wasn't the goal. Justice was the goal. Consequences were the goal. Teaching that free housing and inherited wealth weren't rights, but privileges that could be withdrawn. I locked all the doors. The house was secure, empty, mine again. The house stood empty through June while I consulted with a real estate agent. Market value had held steady at $650,000. I listed it in early July and it sold within 3 weeks. Closing costs netted me $640,000, the money that would never reach Seth. The city scholarship fund occupied a modest office in the Pearl District. I scheduled a meeting with their director, Margaret Chen. Mr. Stewart, thank you for coming in, she greeted me. I'm donating the proceeds from a property sale, $640,000, I explained. I want it used for college scholarships for students from low-income families. Full 4-year funding. Margaret's expression shifted to genuine surprise. That's remarkably generous. We could fund approximately 15 full scholarships with this amount. 15 lives changed. That's sufficient. We worked through the details. The foundation would manage the selection. My name would remain confidential. Would you like updates on the recipients? She asked. No, I trust your judgment in selecting deserving students. Beyond that, I don't need to know. This is unusual. Most major donors want acknowledgement. I'm not most donors. The money has a purpose now. That's acknowledgement enough. I signed the donation paperwork, transferred the funds, and left with a simple receipt. $640,000 redirected from a son who'd wasted advantages to 15 students who'd earned them. A few weeks later, a letter arrived, formal acknowledgement from the foundation. 15 scholarships funded. Brief descriptions included first-generation college students, foster care survivors, children of single parents working multiple jobs, young people who understood struggle and valued opportunity. I read the letter once and filed it. I heard nothing from Seth. The silence was mutual and appropriate. Through indirect channels, I learned fragments. Seth and Lana were in their small apartment, paying their rent, managing their bills, learning what independence actually meant. I felt no satisfaction, just confirmation that consequences were real and being faced. Roland, you seem different lately, Marcus from the next cubicle observed one afternoon. More settled, maybe? Some situations required attention. They've been addressed. I returned to my audit report. Numbers aligned, expenditures tracked, federal funds properly accounted for. The work that gave my life structure and meaning. My life was cleaner now. No calls asking for favors. No performance of poverty to teach lessons. Just my life lived on my terms. The story people would tell, if anyone told it, would be simple. An auditor, 64 years old, made decisions about his estate. Those decisions were executed legally, upheld by courts, and resulted in charitable contributions benefiting deserving youth. Clean, professional, principled. I had given Seth 20 years of hidden advantages, 8 years of free housing, 3 months showing him consequences. The education was complete. I closed my laptop. Outside my window, West Coast City's lights sparkled. Somewhere in this city, my son struggled with consequences he'd earned. Somewhere else, 15 young people prepared for opportunities they'd been given. I felt no need to know more than that. The scales were balanced, the accounts settled, the audit complete. The justice was done. The rest was simply living. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.